Alright, hey everybody, this is the second video in our tutorial on how to make a shooter, and in this one we're going to go over the Part Studio work. So you see, we're starting off with our reference geometry. If you don't have this, go back to part 1 and get that done. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create some reference bars in this Part Studio so we can use to create our plates off of. And so the way we're going to do that, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a plane off of this top plane here. And so what that's going to represent is the bottom of our frame members and on our drivetrain. So this box right here that we created in the first thing, this is our quote-unquote drivetrain. But this is 6 inches tall, but only the top 2 inches are going to be actually frame. So the way we can do this is we can go up to here to the plane tool. We can select that, and it's going to ask us for entities, and we're just going to select the top plane. And since we're on offset, we can just set this to 4 inches, and it'll create a plane 4 inches above the top plane. So we're going to go ahead and hit check mark on that. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new sketch on this plane. So we're going to select it and then click sketch. And we'll go up to the top view. And just to get, if you don't want to see these little annoying boxes, you can just go over here and click the eyeball on each of them. Or if you just hit P, it makes them all go away. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a rectangle that is the frame, the outside of the frame from the top view. So we're going to go here and we're going to get a rectangle. We can do a center point rectangle. I find that to be easier because it just creates it like this. And if we hit Q, it'll make it construction geometry, which is what we want. So we can do this, and we have a square, and we want it to be a perfect square. So we can grab 2 of these sides and either come up here and hit the equal button, or just hit E on the keyboard, and it makes them equal. So then we only have to dimension one side, and we'll grab it to 30 because that's what I have mine as at. You might have yours at 29, and if you do, just make it 29. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to basically, the bars that we're going to make here are going to be roughly here to essentially straddle the plates of the shooter so the ball will travel along them. So we can illustrate this. Let's grab a circle, and I'll make it construction with Q. Oops. And we'll make that 9 inches. This is to represent our actual ball, and I'll make it, okay. And so you see that travels along here. And so what we're going to do is essentially make 2 bars, oops, just like this. And so we know we have to have this an inch away from this edge here, because this is the outside edge of the bar of the frame. So the frame member that would be here is an inch wide, so we'll make this 1 inch. And then this will be also, since we're looking at the top, this will also be 1 inch. And we'll have this an inch from the back as well. And we want to have this so it's a little bit wider than the actual ball. So we're going to make this 10. And since we have this center line right here, in fact, let's just draw another one just to be safe. We'll go ahead and, because the center line, it has this behavior. So if you get it with a reference to a center line and you bring it past it, it'll basically make it a symmetrical dimension. So we can set this as 10. Let's do 10 inches. So we have a little bit of space on either side. So now that we've created this rectangle and we want it over here, instead of having to create it again, we'll go up in here and we'll click mirror. We'll select, and it says select a mirror line, and we're going to select this line to mirror it across. And this now it says select entities to be mirrored, and we're going to go ahead and select all these lines that we want. Hit escape to get out of it, and now we have these 2 things. Very nice. So now that's all we need in this sketch. So we're going to go ahead and hit OK, and we're going to go to extrude individual, because we're going to use these parts as a reference, and so if we do a normal extrude, it's not going to work out right. So we're going to go ahead in search bar up here in this corner, we're going to search up extrude individual. So we're going to click these 2, and so it's asking for sketch regions. We're going to click these 2 sketch regions, make our blind depth to be 2 inches, and just like that we have our 2 bars. And you might think, oh, well, that's not a bar, and it's just a rectangle. And so what we can do to fix that is super easy. Is we can just go over to search and we can type a tube converter, and this is a feature script that we can custom feature script that we can get. If you don't have this, as well as any other feature scripts that we're going to use later in this video, you can go to frcdesign.org and go to their external resources and go to the tab for feature scripts and get it from there. Almost necessary for how much it helps you design. So we're in tube converter, and it's asking for bodies to convert. So we're going to select these 2 bodies. It's going to load, take a second to load. And you can see it's already populated with the right thing, but I'll go over what you think. So each of the thing is. So here it says wall thickness, which is basically just, it's how thick this is right here. We want the whole pattern. We want it to be a max tube. We want the hole size to be correct. We want it to be centered on the tube. And then the max tube style, this is probably the most important thing, is light with grid. This is the one we're going to use for this. So we're going to go ahead and hit check mark, and we have our 2 nice bars. So next thing we're going to do is that since we're just using these as references and we don't need them to be 2 individual parts right here, we can go up to search again and do composite part. Then we can do select. You can either select them just like this, or you can select them from down here. And now we want it to be closed because we want it to not only create a composite part, but get rid of these as well. So tab hit compose or closed and do that. And now see, now it's one composite part, and we don't have any parts in the part tree. So now that we've got that done, and we have as a reference, we're going to go ahead and start our actual sketch for our main plates. So we're going to start a new sketch, and we're going to select the inside of this bar as our sketch plane. Go to normal, and so there's a lot of steps in this one. This is the biggest part of this whole video, so we can do it step by step. So the first thing we're going to do is that we have all these holes in this bar, and this is what we're going to mount the plate to on the frame. And so we have to have holes in the plate to mount it with. So what we're going to do is we're going to make our first hole, and instead of having to make a circle and make it in here and make it and dimension it, we can do is we can go up here to this project convert tool, or it's also called use, or hit U, and just select the circle. So what this does is basically it just pulls the this sketch geometry from somewhere else into the current sketch you're in. Super convenient. So now that we have that, we want it to be more holes. We want it to go across here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go up here to linear pattern. So select that and select the hole we want to use. And you can see it's started to generate more geometry. It's a little easier if you rotate it because you can kind of see where it is. And so we have all these holes, but we don't want to have every single hole be one. So this 1 inch distance is correct because these holes are on a 1/2 inch interval. And so we're gonna set this to, let's say, 15. Oops, not 145, 15. And you can see it ends about here. And we want that's about where we want it, because this is the farthest back point of the indexing roller, and we want it to be a little bit farther behind that, so we have some extra support. So then we have all this bottom row done, and we can kill 2 birds with 1 stone by just coming up here to this 1x and just changing that to a 2. And this 1 inch is still correct because it'll be holes along this top row. So we can click the check mark, and just like that, we have all of our holes patterned for mounting. Super convenient. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to make the mounting holes right here. So what's going to have right here is we're going to have another 1x1 bar to support it and give the whole assembly some rigidity. And so the way we're going to do that, the easiest way to start that is going up with a rectangle and hitting Q to make it construction. And we're going to start here and just bring it up just like this. We can dimension this bottom part to 1 inch because it's a 1x1, and then we want this to be 10 inches long. So the first thing we're going to do now, so we have this outline of where this bar is going to be, and we want to make the holes. So let's grab a circle, place it down, and we want it to be 0.196 just to interface with the bar. And now we want it to be centered along here, so we can click this, and let me actually place a point right here. Grab a point, and you can see hover along it. It's midpointed. You see that little highlighted part, and that means it's going to place directly on the midpoint of the line. So now we can select the center point of the circle and that midpoint, and we will hit vertical. So it's basically, it is aligned with the center point of that line, just what we want. So here we're going to create we're going to dimension it, let's say 1/2 inch away. Actually, let's make that a 1/4 inch. And now we want to make another linear pattern just all the way up there. So let's grab linear pattern, do like that, and see if it's going the wrong way here. You can just set this instance from 3x just to 1, and then go from here from 1x to, let's say, we actually know it's going to be, since it's every 1/2 inch there's a hole and there's a 10 inches of bar, we can just set automatically to 20 and then change this interval from 1 to 0.5. See, now there's holes all the way across here. Click to confirm, and just like that we have our mounting holes right there. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add in our bearing holes. And so for everything that has a shaft that's going to spin, we need a bearing hole. And so we can do this by just grabbing a circle, and I'll just place him down. And you see, since this is a different sketch, we can't snap it here, so we can just place him down, and we can go through and mate them later. And we're going to need one here for the main shaft. So I'll go through and I'll do this, and the easiest way to do this is just either you can come up here and hit coincident, or you can just hit I on your keyboard. That's what I'm going to do. So point, point, I, point, point, I, point, point, I, and point, point, oops, point, point, I. Oop, okay, there it goes. And so now we want all these to be the same size, so we can just select all these, missed that one, and then hit equals, and it'll be all the same size. And now we dimension 1 to the proper size for the bearings, which is 1.125 or 1 1/8, and we'll have all the bearings done. And so now we want to add the mounting holes for our guides. So essentially, as the ball comes along here, we want a guide along this path to keep it from popping out into places where we don't want. And so we're going to need guides for that. And so the way we're going to do that, we're going to get a circle that is going to represent our standoff. And so the way this is going to be constructed is there's going to be standoffs along here. Well, there's holes in the plate where there's going to be a long bar that goes between the two plates, and then there's going to be a thin piece of plastic that is bent along there and attached to those bars, and will guide the ball along its path. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to make a circle, and let's go ahead and make a construction with Q, and we'll set this to the outer diameter of those standoffs, which is 0.375 or 3/8 of an inch. And next we're going to make it tangent to this outside path, which basically means it'll make it so that the sheet of plastic will sit right along here, and it'll be right along this path of the ball perfectly. So now we want to align this properly. So let's grab a line, make a construction, and draw it from the center point here all the way down here. And you can see it's still blue, so we want to make it. You can click the line, and we want to just make it perfectly vertical. So you can just hit vertical. So now it's all defined. So now in here, we want to actually add the hole that we're going to have in the plate. Do this. We can make another circle and dimension it to 0.196. And so that's 1, but we want there to be multiple. We want there to be a bunch all along here. So the way we're going to do that is instead of a linear pattern, which we've been doing before, we can drop down and click a circular pattern. So we can select, we would just want to select this one right here with just the mounting hole, not necessarily this outside hole. So we select that, and you see it makes it down here across the part origin, which we don't really want. So we can just grab this box and just drag it up to right there, just where we want it. And you can see it's still going all the way around at 360 degrees. We don't want that. We can grab this little arrow, bring it out here, and let's say about 100 degrees. That'll work nicely, because you see it'll stop it right here, which is about where we want it to stop, so it doesn't interfere with anything that's going on up here. So we've done that, and so now we want there to be just 3 of them is not quite enough. So let's go ahead and double that to 6, and then just hit left click to confirm, and now we have 6 holes for our standoffs to go along perfectly. And so now we're going to go ahead and do the same thing up here, because we have this space that we need to cover as well. So we're going to create we're going to do much the same thing here. A circle, construction, we'll dimension it to 0.375. Make it tangent to this outside path. If you don't notice what I'm doing here, if I'm not clicking up here, I'm just hitting T on the keyboard. It's a shortcut. And we're going to go ahead and make the inner circle. Oops. Here, which will be 0.196. And we're going to make another line from here to the center point over here, and let's make that, roughly 18 degrees. We'll put it in the right place. And then we're going to make another circular pattern. We just grab this, and we can go out here, zoom way out, and grab this and put it on. We put the axis of rotation on this center point, and we can go over and rotate this around. And if you notice, it's going kind of in the wrong direction. So all we need to do is just take this arrow and click it, and it flips it around. You can drag it out, and let's kind of eyeball it. Let's say 40 degrees. That is way over here, the dimension. So 40 degrees looks good. So instead of 3, let's go ahead and do 4. Well, yeah, 4. So do that, left click to confirm, and now we have our holes. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add some more supports. So we need more supports along here to basically properly space out the plates and make it so it doesn't interfere with the shafts or make anything bind up. So let's do the ones right here first, because there's going to be a lot of force right here. We want to have this well supported. So first we're going to do is we're going to make another circle. Let's make this another 375, but see, now we're not going to be making it as a construction line. We're going to be making it as a normal line, because you'll see why in a second. So then let's make another circle. Oops, why am I still in dimension? In the inside here, we'll make that 196, because that's our mounting hole. And let's dimension it. Grab one other line actually. Do it to center. Dimension this line. Let's say 2.5. That looks about right. And we're going to kind of just arbitrarily place it. Let's say here-ish, and we can grab this line. Let's set this to 130 degrees. That looks pretty good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to rotate. We want another one about here, and we can do the same thing. We can grab a circular pattern, grab both of these this time, because you'll see why in a second. And we'll grab this rotation axis, put it right there, and let's flip it around, move it out here, and let's put that about 60 degrees. That looks about right. And on this example, you don't see that instance count number. I don't know why that happens, but if it does, it's not a huge deal. We'll just confirm it if we don't want this middle one, so we can just highlight it and click delete, just like that, no problems. So we got these two holes, and so now we want to get we want a standoff here and here, and the way we're going to do that is pretty much the same, but defining the geometry is a little bit more complicated. So we're going to grab another circle here, circle here, circle here, and circle here. That's roughly where they're going to go. We set these two outside circles equal to each other, and these two inside circles equal. These two inside circles equal to each other. Get dimension the outside one to 0.375, and the inside circle to 0.196. So now let's go ahead and make them, let's say, dimension them here, let's say 0.125, just away from this imaginary. This is the gear, where the gear is going to be, and let's make it over here the same, just to get it even. So now we've got those placed. It'll be easier to dimension them once we actually start drawing the outside, so we can go ahead and move on from this for a second. So now we have most of the features here. We can go ahead and start drawing the outside profile. So we can start that. We'll just go ahead and start that down here. You can just start it at this line, bring it down, just across. We're just going to get the general shape here, and then we'll get some dimensions in a second. So we have this line, and it's all blue. So we're going to want to make this dimension from this center point of this first hole about 1/4 inch, and the same down here. I'm going to come over here, and we're going to do the same thing, 1/4 inch. And we want to come over here, and let's make this one a little bit longer. Let's make this one 1/2 inch. And we'll just have this line come up to the very tippy top of this bar reference geometry. And we see it's going to move like this. You can just drag it coincident, just like that. It's not like that. If you see something like that happen, just Control Z and try something different. We'll just grab these two lines and make them coincident. That makes it happy. So now we have this line up to this point, and what we're going to do is why we left these circles non-construction is we're going to take a line from here, come out here, and just snap it onto here. And to make this nice smooth transition, we can select the circle and the line and hit tangent or hit T on your keyboard, and it makes a nice smooth perfect transition. And we're going to go that here. We're going to make another line from this circle to this circle and do the same thing, tangent and tangent, just like that, nice and smooth. And we're going to come over here and we're going to do the same thing to these standoffs up here that we haven't quite defined yet. And come down here, tangent. And over here, I think it already automatically did tangent, which is nice. So now we're going to go ahead and start by making two segments, because we see these are at a slight angle. If we look, this is at a bit of an angle, and this is at a bit of an angle to each other. I'll show you here, just like this. And so we want these two lines to match these two. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a construction line from here to here, and from here out. And we want these two to be parallel, so we can just select them both and click parallel. And we can do now is select these three lines and click the symmetric mate, where it's basically going to make this line directly in the middle of these two. Just like that. And so now we have that at a nice angle, and we can set now we can set this tangent to each other. And you can see this still moves just like this. And so we can make this, let's just make this horizontal, just like that. So now that's fully defined. And this, you can see this still moves. And so we can just change this right here. Let's make this a 1/4 inch from the wheel, so we don't have the wheel poking out there. We can set it another 1/4 inch. Actually, no, we have to make this tangent right here. See, this can still move right here. We don't really want this. So we're going to go ahead and make these two vertical. See, now everything is fully defined. So now we have this one right here, and we can go ahead and just bring another line down here. And for these sections here, we want to match this curve. And so what we can do is we can go here and grab a center point arc, drop the center point down over here where this main roller is, come out here and just do like that. And we want it to be matched perfectly to where this standoff is, so we can just select the arc and the circle and just make it tangent. So we can come over here and we can connect these two. Just grab this endpoint and this endpoint and just click I to make it nice and connected. And so we want to make these two tangent right here, and then we have this free floating, and we can kind of decide what we want this angle to be. So let's set an angle to, let's say, to this main line that we know is horizontal here. We could set that to be, 130. That looks fine. You don't want it too close to any holes. So we have that, and we're going to come over down here, and we're going to do another center point arc, because we want it to come down here and go around this and then down. So let's do center point arc, grab this, and just like that. And we can come down here, bring this arc down here, bring these two, connect those, and then we'll make another one. We'll make our last line from here down to here, and that completes our, you see when it turns gray, and we've got a full thing. We've got a completed closed sketch. So now let's make this tangent just to make it nice and pretty, and let's dimension this arc. Let's say a half an inch from there. Let's make that a 1/4 actually. So now we've got this nasty cusp here. If we don't want that, what we can do is go into a, let's see, where is it? A sketch fillet right here. We can select that, and now we can change what radius we want this. Let's say 2 inches. We want it really smoothed out. See, now it's a nice smooth curve, just like that. We can do the same thing up here if we like as well. Sketch radius, let's say 2 inches. That looks good too. So now it's nice and smoothed out. That looks good. So now what we can do, we've got this main sketch done. That's the hard part. So now we can hit extrude, and it'll automatically grab all the stuff we want it to, and we want it to extrude a 1/4 inch, 0.25 from there. Hit check mark, and there you go. We have our first main plate done, or mostly done. So now what we have to do is, you see all these sharp edges. We don't want those, especially those inside ones. We can't make that on the CNC. So what we can do is we can go to a feature called fillet all edges, fillet, search for fillet. It's called fillet all edges. We can select the face that we want, just like this. Change it, make sure the radius is 0.25 inches. You can see it's automatically grabbed all those edges we want. Actually, it hasn't, which is a little bit odd. Let me grab this face instead, just like that. Oh, I see what the problem is here. You see, I've made a little mistake that I think a lot of people do make. Is you see how these two are the same color, and this is marked as the same part, and there's a problem here. Is it sometimes when you do an extrude, it will default to add instead of new. Add basically adds that material to another existing part, which is in this case the composite part. We don't want that, so we want to change that from add to new. And with the check mark, and now it is only affecting this part, and it's its own new part. So now we've gotten this main plate done. Now what we want to do is we want to add the mounting for these motors. You see there's nothing here. So we'll go to here and we'll go to another feature script called motor mounting, and we'll select basically we still want to have this visibility, this first sketch on. So we select these midpoints of those two. We have to go as the origins for the motor mounting and for the merge scope, which is basically whatever part this operation is going to be affecting, and we can select this main plate. And if it still has an error, we can just try flipping the extrude, because it might be trying to go the wrong way. And so what we have to configure this to be is sim-like is what we want, then boss diameter adder, that's just leave that as normal. 6, we want to know 6 holes for up and falcon, and then clock angle, we can just leave that the same because it looks nice. And then just like that, and it will automatically create our motor mounting for us. Super, super convenient. Alright, so now we have one plate. We want to have two. We want to have them both. So we can do, instead of, we can grab a mirror and make sure it's on part mirror. And for entities to mirror, just select the part. For mirror plane, we'll go ahead and do the front plane. And you see, it's going to create another plate just like that, just mirrored. And we want to see, is this as add? We want it to be on new. Just like that, and you have two separate parts that are both the plate. So now that we have that done, we can go ahead and add our belts in. This is nice to do it here. We can do it with a custom feature script instead of having to do it a different way later. So the way we can do this is go up to here and just search belt, and it'll be called, the feature script we're going to use is called contextless belt. This is a pretty easy to use tool, so let's do this one right here. This is the belt from the motor, the drive motor for the shooter to the main shaft. We can select just the circles. That works just fine. And you see it already generates a belt. And so we can, since from our calculations in the last video, we know that these want to be 1-to-1, and we're using a 24 tooth pulley on each one. So we just change pulley 1 teeth to 24 and pulley 2 teeth to 24. Leave our pitch at 5 millimeters, and then it'll automatically tell us how many teeth and generate a nice thing for us. I'm going to turn off sketch 1's visibility just so it's easier to see for now. So we've got that belt in. So we now have to have a belt from here out to here, which is from the main shooter shaft to the gear shaft here, which goes to the backspin rollers. So we're going to go ahead and open another contextless belt. We're going to grab this circle, and we want this to be another 24 tooth and 24 tooth, and it'll automatically create that 140 tooth pulley or belt. So now I want to create the one between here and here. Just same procedure. These two circles, 24, 24, just like that. See, it's super easy. Now for down here, it's a little bit different, but pretty much the same. Remember we wanted to have a reduction here, so we're going to leave. Oops, I don't know why that deselected. Right, like that. We're going to set 1 to 24. You can see that is the back one, which we want to be 24. We wanted this one up here to be 60, just like that. And you can see it's a 170 tooth belt, just like we calculated. So now that we've got our belts in here that we can use in our assembly later, we can go ahead and add our shaft. It's nice and easy to do it now while you have a nice feature script to use, rather than having to manually input all the numbers you want to have in MKCAD. So we're going to do that with another feature script called shaft generator. So the first one we're going to do is going to be between these two plates here and here for the shaft for the backspin rollers. So this is a pretty easy tool to use. What we want to do is just select the inside faces, the inside circles. We want to select this circle and this circle. Well, actually, first we have to configure it to be correct. So the origin you want to be this inside circle, and instead of blind, which is just a set distance for how long we want to extrude it, we can select up to face and set the end face to right here. And you can see I've already have some of an offset here, but we don't want that. We can just clear that. Let's just clear it to 0. So what we want on either side here is over here we're not gonna have this pulley, this key belt here is actually going to be inside in the assembly, so we don't need any offset for this. But since we're going to have a bearing here, the bearing extends this way a little bit, so we want to have a offset of for a 0.0625, which is a 16th of an inch, and we don't want it to be inset like that. So if it's inset, just hit flip and it'll create material on the outside, which is what we want. And the other side, we want the same thing, so we just end offset 0.0625, and it generates more shaft on the outside, just like we want. We want to change it from shaft type, from this shaft type up here, from a 1/2 inch hex to thunder hex. That's what we're going to use. Hit check, and it's generated that shaft for us. And now on this next one over here, we're going to do the shaft for right here, which is for the gear as well as the pulley that will drive these eventually. So we're going to go in and start a new shaft generator. Set the origin right is this circle right here, and change it from blind to up to face. Select the end face as this one. Again, we want the offset to be 16th of an inch. That doesn't look like 16th of an inch, which is odd. Okay, there we go. And now, since we're going to have a pulley here, we need to have more offset this way. And each pulley is 1/2 inch wide. And so for each pulley that we're going to have on this shaft, we need to add 1/2 inch on top of our existing 16th inch offset for the bearing. And we can't just have add 1/2 inch on this one, because we have we're going to have 2 pulleys on this shaft, which is going to be feeding over here. In fact, let's go ahead and just do that shaft first. It's going to be easier to explain. So let's grab this origin and the end face to be this one. So on this side, we're going to have 1 pulley from this motor over here that's going to drive this shaft. So we're going to set the end offset to this 16th inch plus 1/2 inch. So we're going to add a 5 here to be 0.5625 inches. And see, it's going in the wrong direction. So we can just flip it, and now we have 1/2 inch plus 16th of an inch, just what we want. And on this side, we're going to have 2 pulleys. We're going to have 1 pulley going to the motor and 1 pulley going way out here. So we need to have 1/2 inch twice, so just 1 inch of pulleys thickness plus this 16th of an inch. So we'll do 1.0625, and you see, oops, I don't know what happened there. 1.0625. You see it's in the wrong direction, so we can just flip offset. There we go. Just what we want. Let's change it from 1/2 inch hex to thunder hex, and we're good to go. And so now we can get back to this one up here, now that I've explained that. And so you see how there's 2 belts. This belt is going to go from the motor. It's going to be the first one to be the inside. So we're going to have this one here, and we're going to have the belt going to the gear shaft on the outside. And so we can't just have this be directly, just 1/2 inch off, because we have to have a spacing for it later. So we're going to create a new shaft. We're going to select the origin as this circle, and the up to the end face is this one. We're going to flip this offset, because it's actually autofills from the previous one, so it's 1.0625 is correct, because we have the 16th inch space, we have 1/2 inch of spacing for to make up for the pulley that's down here, and we have the 1/2 inch of the actual pulley. And then on this side, we're not going to have anything here, so we can just set this to 0.0625 to make up for the bearing, just like that. Oh, and we forgot to change it to thunder hex. Okay, so now we have one more shaft to do, and it's this one right here for the indexer wheel. And so we're going to go ahead and start another shaft generator. Grab the inside. This is the origin, blind up to face. Select this as our end face. And we can flip this just like that, and we don't need it to be a full inch, because it's only going to be 1 pulley in this whole system. So we can switch this from 1.0625 to just 0.5625. Just like that. And on this side, it's already perfect, because we don't need anything on this side. Change it from a 1/2 inch hex to thunder hex, and then that shaft is done. So we've got our plates, our pulleys, these bars, and our belts done. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and actually model the bar that goes here. The easiest way, it's pretty easy to do this. We can turn the visibility back onto sketch 3, which is our main plate sketch, and we can create a new sketch on that side of the plate. And you can see the outline of where we want this bar to be. So what we can do is we can just open a new rectangle and just draw it just like that. And it should just snap to those endpoints you already have, and you're just done. That's it. Actually, you don't want it to be down here. We want to make sure it's in line here. I made a mistake there. Grab there, like that, just like that. We can extrude that. And so this is going to be a 1x1 bar. We're going to make it 1 inch, make sure it's going in the right direction, just like that. And again, make sure it's on new, making a new part. And we're going to use the tube converter feature again. Just select that part, and it's automatically going to default to what we want. Light with grid, just like that. Check mark, and then we're done with that. And now the last thing we're going to do is we're going to actually make these plastic guides that I was talking about earlier, those curved guides that will guide the ball along the path in the shooter. But first thing we're going to do, just to make this a little easier to work with, turn off this sketch, is we're going to change the appearance of these parts. So what we can do, we're going to select these two in this part tree down here, select them both, right click, edit appearance for 2 parts. And what I like to do is one of these grays, I like doing this middle one on the far left, and this A value down here is your transparency. For our Lexan pieces like this, I set mine to about 0.2 usually. It's personal preference, but I like 0.2. So you can see now they're clear. Another thing to do while we're already in there is we can select them both again and right click and assign material. We always want to make sure we're assigning material properly so we can use for robot weight and center of gravity. So we're going to change the material to search up polycarbonate, select that, check mark, just like that. We're done. So now we want to make these 2 guides. We want to make a guide that goes here and one that goes here. We can do that in one sketch. So we can create a new sketch. I want to grab the inside face of one of these. And what we're going to do, we're going to get another center point arc. We're going to start it in this right there. And we're going to go just like that. I'm actually going to turn on the visibility of this old sketch so we can see these lines as for use for reference. What we want to do is want to make it this arc tangent to this outside. This is the reference for those standoffs that we were using earlier. Select those 2 and hit T, make them tangent. And what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and dimension this point to this line at just a 1/4 inch, just to make it extend a little further beyond. We're going to do the same thing up. Same thing up here. And now we want to make this, instead of just a line, we want to make it actually a closed body. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up here to offset, which is basically, we're going to select that. We can select this line, and you can see it's creating another line directly offset from it. We can change this distance to 0.0625 or 1/16 of an inch because we're going to use that super thin, flexible plastic. Hit the check mark, and you can see now we have 2 lines. So now all we have to do is we have to take another line, connect those 2, and you can see it's still blue. So we can just go ahead and select that line as well as this line from the previous sketch and just make them parallel, which is this parallel made up here, just to make it dimensioned. Come down here, do the same thing, line, grab this, parallel. And you can see now this one is done. Now we're just going to repeat this process up here. So grab a center point arc, come over here, just like this, boom, make it tangent, 1/4 inch distance, 1/4 inch distance, 1/4 inch distance. We'll do another offset, and you see if it's in the wrong direction, you can just kind of drag it in the right direction, and then you can change it to the dimension you want. Check mark, line. I don't know why that started editing. Make this parallel. Go down to the other one. Line. Select this one and parallel. So now we have both of these closed sketch bodies ready to extrude. We'll just go in, hit extrude, make sure we're on new. We want those both to be new bodies. And And you can see now you're just extruding as a parameter of how deep you want to extrude. But what we want to do is we want to make it from all the way from this face to this face. We can do that by changing from blind to up to face, and then you have a selection box. We can just select this face, and it automatically extrudes all the way up there, just like we want it. Check mark. And one last thing before we're done in the part studio is we're going to change the appearance and the material of these two new parts. So in the part tree, we can just select these two parts. So you can see how they highlighted to make sure they're the right one. Right click, assign material, change it to polycarbonate, and then edit appearance. Grab this middle one, 0.2. And just like that, we are done with the part studio work. So in the next video, we're going to go over how to use all these parts that we've created here to make the final assembly.